Hey everyone. So we have a special surprise day. We've given Dave Young the day off, because Dave works really hard. And actually, Dave works for this guy. So we know why Dave works so hard. So I'm here with Daniel Whittington, and Daniel is the chancellor of the Wizard Academy and basically created the whiskey marketing school at the academy. And last time I was down in Austin, Daniel and I were sitting in the vault. We were doing a tasting and Daniel shared a thought that just like rocked me back on my heels, which doesn't happen that often. And what I loved about it is he compared the marketing of whiskey to the promotion of a band. And the more he talked about it, I said, we need to share this idea on the podcast because I'm constantly going down this idea of looking elsewhere. So Daniel, tell us Tell us more about this revelation and the journey you've been on. And at the end, let's make sure we talk about why everyone should actually take a course at the academy and learn about whiskey.
My explanation of it now sounds just as good as it felt like it did when we were drinking whiskey in the vault together, because those two don't always line up. So thanks for having me on, Steve. The origin of this whole idea was I've got a background in music industry. I spent 20 years as a full-time studio and touring musician, and during that time did a lot of booking, did a lot of traveling, did a lot of promotion of bands, actually worked with bands promoting and touring and growing their fan base. And then I got out of that and stumbled backwards into Wizard Academy, where I've spent the last 11 years actually.
Wow, has it been 11
It's been
years?
11 years
Holy smokes.
basically getting a graduate level super masters in actual marketing and communications. And during that time started the whiskey marketing school and have now started working with my own clients that are whiskey related right now. And one of them, they are poised for explosion in growth. They're well set up. They've been winning awards. They've already got a huge fan base that's kind of localized to where they tend to travel to most, not just their town, but in their region. But we're ready to grow them. They've got some investment, they've got some money, they're hiring, they're ready to explode. And so we spent 7 months building the marketing strategy and the ethos, the brand voice, the architecture of the personality of the brand and who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. And during that time, I was thinking, I don't know how to grow these guys. Because
So in other words, I'm glad this is taking so long because I need more
yeah,
time.
yeah, because like so much of the way that I've helped grow people has been very particular to my skill set, or it has been brands that could use traditional media. And this distillery, that there's no need for, like, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking the worst thing we could do is use traditional media, because you've already owned your localized areas. And a whiskey bottle isn't just a local business, isn't HVAC where they can only service customers in a certain mileage, right? A whiskey bottle travels around the world. So they're going to have, I mean, they've got a huge following in New Mexico and Arizona, a huge following in California. They're all over. So if we did a radio campaign, we'd have to figure out how to buy into markets in LA and Phoenix and Dallas. And no, we would bankrupt them in like 2 weeks.
And these guys are Texas based that you're talking about.
Yeah, they're Texas based.
Right.
And I'm thinking like, what do we do? And social media, and this is coming from somebody who built, no longer, but originally, the largest whiskey focused YouTube channel on YouTube. I think I'm now like fourth or fifth because people are kicking ass out there and doing a great job of growing the whiskey YouTube kingdom. But I know social media real well. And it's not a way to grow a business. It's a way to augment a growth plan. It's not a sword that solves all problems. You know what I mean? It's just not. Unless you're specifically a personality and that's your venue of growth. But if you're just a business that's going to actually have stuff people can go buy on the shelf, That's not your game that you play.
I just want to clarify this because this is really interesting. So what you're saying is if I'm building myself as a person, right? Like I'm a
Yeah.
consultant or I'm a celebrity or I'm something like that, absolutely social media,
Yeah.
you can do that. But if you're selling a product or a service, basically it'll augment your existing plan, but it's
Yeah.
not the lead of the story.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, we're going to start really nitpicking here, and this is a different conversation. I feel like there's a fine line where it's like, yeah, if the shit that you're selling is like under $100 or under 50, and you can turn
Right.
and burn a million of them, then yeah, maybe you can do a whole bunch of Instagram and funny YouTube ads and sell a bunch of it. But if
Right.
you're selling an HVAC system or real products, like that's a losing market.
Right.
It's really noisy, and so I was sitting there trying to,
And that's a good distinction.
yeah, widgets. If you're
Yes.
selling a widget.
Perfect.
But whiskey is about community. I mean, it's treated as a commodity, but it's really about the community and the people and the story around it that matters. And so we can use social media, but that can't be the only way that we grow. There's got to be another way to reach people. And then one day, I was talking with some of the tasting reps that like travel around and go into these physical stores and do tastings and go to whiskey events and sit at tables. And I realized I've seen this pattern before. This is band street teams.
What do you mean by band
So
street team?
like I'm a rock band. We start off in Austin. We play a little coffee shop. Then we get into a club, and then we start selling out the club, and then we start playing theaters in Austin. And now every show, has 500, 800 people. It's time to go on the road. We need to go into Dallas. Well, you can drive into Dallas, and you can have your people start going on and putting up flyers. But if none of your band lives in Dallas, that's tough. So what do? You find a fan who lives in Dallas, and you make them part of your street team, and they go around putting up flyers, and in exchange they get tickets and they get merch and they get backstage access when you come in and show. They get to hang out in the green room with you when you play the show in Dallas. And then, oh, we're going to break into Phoenix? All right, let's do the same thing. Let's find a fan in Phoenix and let's go. Right. But the way that that works is you cannot build a fan base in a town unless you're willing to show up regularly. So you can't show up in Dallas once every 2 years and expect to grow your audience. You got to show up in Dallas once a month, once a quarter, minimum once a quarter, until you've got legs and you've built it. And then you get in danger of saturating your market. And so then you back off to twice a year, you hit Dallas, right? And then you use that space that you gained to try to crack into a new city, Phoenix, and so on. And then when you're big enough, you can sort of do regular circuits where everyone knows you're coming through on a regular basis, right? But at first, you have to do all the hard work to carve out awareness. And the way you carve out awareness isn't getting on the radio in Dallas, isn't getting the DJs to play all your music. That's helpful. The way you get on the radar in a town at first is play the clubs, meet the bands, meet the promoters, meet the owners of the bars, meet the other bands that are playing in town, get them to book you when they're doing multiple headliners, meet the fans, get to know them, and you just grind it out. And I went, holy crap, we could absolutely do that. If we take all the money we would have spent on radio or magazine ads or whatever, and instead we start paying tasting reps and we grow our two-legged army out of the whiskey brand into the world, then we can start making our presence known, and we can hire a local who can hit all the right bars that they know would pour our whiskey and would love it, and a local that can go to the local whiskey events and the local whiskey meetups and introduce and speak for our brand. And then they can book an event where one of the owners comes by once a quarter and you get to meet the head distiller or meet one of the owners of this brand. And it's a real special thing because they've been prepped for it and they're all excited because they all love your whiskey now. And then you just keep growing like that. And it's not near as expensive because you don't need a full time person. You need to pay someone with part time money and perks, right?
Right.
And then make them feel like a true insider of the brand. And that's it. You could take over the world, one major city at a time. And even better than a band, you can do it faster because we could have 5 reps doing that simultaneously in 5 major cities. And then once a quarter, you hit all 5 major cities with one of the owners or one of the headliners. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I was like, oh my God. And I ran the budget on that, and it was a fraction of a radio account.
Yeah.
And because we had spent 7 months while I was mildly panicking in the background, because we had spent 7 months so carefully crafting the message, like it took me 10 minutes to write the manual that you would hand to these street reps that would have them speaking on message, on brand, and in character at every level.
But thank you for saying that. Because one of the things that we're always talking about as Wizard of Ads partners, and I'm always talking to customers and prospective customers about this, it's message first.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is really important, what you just said right here, was it's a tactical idea that will work and is brilliant and is amazing. But the reason why it's going to work is.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap up this story and tell you how to apply this lesson to your business right after this.
Hey, Rick, I'm glad we got out again.
Yeah,
What's going on?
my digital advertising's got more expensive and it doesn't seem to be working as well.
I see.
Nice drive, by the way.
So?
I don't know how I'm going to keep growing. I feel like I'm going sideways, flattening out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you speak to Steven?
You mean this podcast host?
Yep.
Not yet.
Do you like going sideways?
No, I want to be growing.
Well,
Starter session.
yep.
5 iron?
Sure. Oh, and you can book your free starter session on this podcast website.
Your turn, Dave.
Let's pick up our story where we left off, and trust me, you haven't missed a thing.
The reason why it's going to work, look at it, 7 months on the message
Mm-hmm.
and a short period of time on the execution. And in fact, I'm going to argue how to execute that message emerged out of the creating of the message.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Right.
That's why I stumbled
Right.
onto the idea in the first place. And not only that, but
Yeah.
if we took that same money without a message and we launched people who just happened to already be fans of the distillery, the message going out in the market is going to be chaos.
Correct.
Because everyone's going to be talking about their own preferred why they like that brand that may or may not have anything to do with the culture and brand we're trying to create.
Yeah.
It would be detrimental to the brand.
Yeah. And so that's so interesting because it's funny. I'm going out to California in a week or two and basically doing an uncovery with a client. And the client was like, hey, could we start rewriting the website, before you guys have got, the media plan put together? And it's like, the reason why I don't have the media plan put together is I haven't got your message plan put together. And if I don't have your message plan put together, how the hell do we do a website?
Right.
And while that seems so obvious, when I meet somebody and they hear I'm in marketing, what's their very first question? Well, should I be doing YouTube? Should I be doing? And I'm like, but what's your message? Yeah. Well, we got our message, but it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You need to be spending 10 times the amount of time in messaging than on the strategy. But anyway,
Oh, yeah.
but I digress. What I'm hearing from you is as you were creating this messaging, that's when this idea emerged.
Yeah, absolutely. Across the board, what we were able to find is that I wrote medium specific messaging.
Right.
So I've got it broken down to if you're talking in Instagram, here's how you deliver. If you're talking in your newsletter that goes out to your fans, here's how you deliver. If you're talking at a generic public event, here's how you deliver. And then I also had for all the individual reps, here's a 90-second, 60-second, 30-second, 10-second versions of the story. So depending on how much time you have with people, you just
Brilliant.
pivot to the long version or the short version.
That's brilliant. You've given them those tools, which a lot of times people don't. They just sign up a rep and go, here's the product. I just had a thought about marketing of whiskey. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, because it's weird to me. Whiskey is much more of a commitment, feels like a commitment when I buy a bottle of whiskey versus a bottle of wine.
Yeah, because it takes so long to drink it.
Right, because it's not just about the price. I'll buy a $100 bottle of wine, and it's a different feeling buying a $100 bottle of whiskey because I can't bring myself to drink a quarter ounce of that whiskey and go, I don't like it, and pour it down the drain. Or
Yeah.
a bottle of wine is like, what the hell? We'll finish it.
Yeah, you will hear that in the language and social media. You'll hear this phrase, man, I got stuck with this bottle, right? No
Right.
one says that about a bottle of wine. They will say, I didn't like it.
Right.
But no one says I got stuck with this bottle because after you've opened the wine, if you tried it, the worst case scenario, you dump half a bottle of wine down the drain. And that's actually, it's like, that's a bummer, but it's not as bad as dumping most of a bottle of hard liquor down the drain. Feels way worse.
It feels very different, but isn't that interesting? It's not about the financial commitment. It's this different type of commitment to whiskey, which is what makes it like that whole tribal involvement
Yeah,
so much more intense. That's really interesting. I
absolutely.
hadn't thought about that until until just now.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. But the other thing I think that I like that's really interesting is how you made a plan to make people feel like they're an insider.
Yeah. And I couldn't have done that except that this brand already does that to its fans.
Okay.
Like that's a core marker of who they are.
Okay.
They don't put themselves on a pedestal. They're not these like special people who you don't really get to hang out with. They're artists who don't really meet the public. These guys are feet on the ground, talking to people, showing up and doing tastings in people's living rooms. Like these guys are connected to their customers. And so it works because of that.
Right. So you're leveraging something that was also already part of their DNA.
Yeah. It would not have worked for the guy who wants to be the secret artist behind the closed door.
So it's pretty obvious if somebody's a distiller and they're looking for marketing ideas that they should give you a telephone call,
Yeah.
which breaks my heart because I've always wanted to work with a distiller. So you'll have to call me and bring me onto the team.
Hey, you still can.
But most people involved in this podcast are not distillers. So if you were an HVAC company or a retailer or something like that, what lesson could they take away from this observation that you have?
If I was just improv making shit up, the only lesson I can pick out of it is that your solution may not be in your market.
That's a good observation.
But I don't know that I would take this strategy and say, here's how you use this as an HVAC company. I would need to think that through more.
What I really liked was the whole idea that you started unclear in terms of what the medium was going to be and what the tactic was. And it
Yeah.
was through the process of creating the messaging that became evident.
Right. What's funny about that is that you keyed in on my pain point in that, because for me, the fun part of the story is that I solved the problem. The part of the story you wanted me to talk about is how I spent 7 months carefully crafting the message the whole time, freaking out that I
Right.
didn't know what we were going to do when we were done with that.
Yeah. The reason why it really parallels with me is this client that we're going out to see in California in a couple of weeks. You know, we've done a 1 day, we've done a starter session. I still don't know what media we're going to use.
Yeah.
I'm literally living right now what you are living, where I'm like, okay, well, as we figure out the story, I'm sort of really hoping that something will
Yeah.
emerge because I'm still not sure.
That's funny.
So I feel it. I feel it where you were, and I'm hoping I could do it in less than 7 months.
Yeah, no, that would be nice. Yeah.
But it's a little bit less complex than the storytelling around whiskey brands. So before we finish up, we got a couple of minutes. Tell us a little bit about the Wizard Academy and why people should do a class there. And what I'm going to sit there and say to folks, how I first got involved with the Wizard of Ads was through attending Magical Worlds. That was my first exposure. It changed so much in terms of the way that I thought about things. It was entertaining course, it was an amazing course. There's so many fantastic courses, but you've sat at the back of many, many, many of these courses and you've seen so many people transform.
Yeah.
You know, what's your pitch for the Academy?
I would say to do what you did. I would say specifically come to Austin, take Magical Worlds of Communication. It's a fundamental communications class that goes through all the archetypal ways that the brain works and how we communicate with each other and how to apply that to business and business marketing and business writing. It will fundamentally alter how you see the world around you. I've never seen it fail.
It really does. And so the extra thing I'm going to say is you go to wizardacademy.org, go to classes, sign up for Magical World, sign up early enough that you're able to stay on campus. And here's the thing I'm going to say, and I say this to my customers, I say this to my friends. When you go to that class, do not plan on doing work that night.
Yeah.
Plan on hanging out and talking about the class. It is so immersive that you will not want to do that. And in fact, my recommendation is don't even plan on trying to boot out of town at the end of the last day. Stick around.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll thank me for taking your time on it and really letting yourself experience it. And it's so absolutely worth it.
Yeah. Rock and roll.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your time, Daniel. This was awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please share us, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and leave us a big, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review at Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to schedule your own 90-minute empire building session, you can do it at empirebuildingprogram.com.